What do we mean when we talk about the in-between, the nexus of our lives, of our reality? So often when we look back at our lives, we look at the milestone moments, these plateaus and footprints that we leave behind as markers of our life's journey. That only makes up about 20 to 30%. The rest is defined and connected by the in-between. Everything that takes place in between. And this is where the art of the spiritual warrior comes in. We can develop the tools and the means to identify all these different elements in our world and become the alchemists of our lives, peering through the nexus and the prism of our multiverse, and drawing forth all that we are into the present now.
Welcome to Tales with the Crypt Keeper.
Hello, everyone. Good day. Welcome back to the Wolf's Den. How's everybody doing? A little playful introduction there because I just felt like it. I missed y'all last week, so wanted to start things off with a hootenanny good time this week. Jesus, Alex. I'm gonna apologize preemptively if at some point there's a loud robotic voice in the background. I forgot just now that, hold on, give me one second. Okay, we're back. Sorry, I ended up I have some electronics charging, specifically my lightsaber that I picked up at Comic-Con last year. Yes, of course, I picked up a lightsaber. And I was just charging it. So when it charges and it goes off, it lets you know pretty loudly. So I just wanted to unplug that quickly. Hello, welcome back. So last week, we're going to catch up. We're going to catch up on the last couple of weeks. We're going to catch up on what's been going on this week, because even this week, just within a short time frame for me personally, coherently, I should say, there's been some stuff. So let's get into it. So last time we chatted, we were talking a lot about masculine and feminine dynamic, and we're probably going to tap a little bit into that today. But to catch everybody up, last week I ended up making my way out to Calgary on that trip that I've been planning for a few months now. And I got to see my family, I got to see some good friends and have some real synchronistic connections. It was awesome. I didn't make it to the show. I tried to space it out. I tried to plan stuff. I totally forgot that anywhere going, I picked a central hotel, and even central, it's still 25 minutes to the closest locations that I got to get to. And then when I get there, it's, 40-minute travel to get to anywhere else, an hour. So it takes a while to get to and from across that city. And I totally forgot about that. So I tried to plan it out, tried to space it. I couldn't make it. I tried to do a pre-recording, and I ended up doing it on my laptop rather than on the streaming service that we use, StreamYard. So we couldn't upload it, and I couldn't get to my laptop. Damn, a whole bunch of jimber jamber came in the way. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to force it. It's okay. I'll catch everybody up. So when I got out there, first thing that I noticed when I got into Calgary, and I notice this every time I get into the big city, the drivers change. Right now, I'm living in Vernon, BC. I had small town dynamic kind of thing for the last few years, and mountain forest kind of living, right, where I'm removed from the city, but I'm still kind of close enough to towns and things like that where I can still go do what I need to do. But the driving is just so much more casual out here, right? It's laid back. You're going to and from. If you need to go high speed, you just hop on the highway and you go to. Calgary has multiple highways just in the city to get you from one end to the other. We've got Stony. There's, Crowchild isn't necessarily a highway, but it's close enough. Deerfoot, there's so much. There's travel-wise getting in there. And as soon as I get into Calgary, a couple things with my card, I almost got nose clipped by someone changing lanes aggressively, and I almost missed my turn into the hotel. So I kind of took a turn too hard and the brakes kind of put me off, and I'm like, oh my God, I just need to rest. It's been a long drive. So I calmed that sense and I got some, well, I tried to get some rest. I didn't really sleep that well that night. But then when I got up the next day, I just felt this kind of fog. And it was weird. It was like I was in a dream state every day that I was out there. And I just said, what is this? Like I feel disassociated. I feel removed from myself, from my own awareness. And so I had to really rein that in every day a lot more consciously than I've had to in a while. And I noticed it was the environment. Like it was just being back in that city, right? There's power lines running right through everything. There's all this energy and frequency that is literally calibrated for high tension, high anxiety, high mentality kind of stress. And it was totally affirmed when I look out my hotel window and I see a couple people almost getting into a fist fight in the McDonald's parking lot. And I just felt this incredible disassociation from them. And I said, wow, like this is it's just so much more evident to me than when I lived in the city because I grew up in Calgary. But it was not as clear to me the influence that simply the environment was having on me at that time that I was there. I knew that there was something and I knew it was part of the environment for sure. But having been removed, having done the work that I've done, and being able to take that awareness right back into that same space again, it was a total different reflection and acknowledgement of everything. And I just said, wow, this city energy is not something I miss at all. At all. There is no, before there were little things like, oh, I'm going to miss having access to this or the feeling of this. And, growing up in the city, man, do I not miss it like at all. There's the only things that I missed, the people, of course, my family's out there, the people that I grew up with and built some really close relationships with. And then second, there's some restaurants, right? Like there's some food that I had to make sure that I got when I was out there for nostalgia's sake. And I mean, just because it's quality food, regardless of the nostalgia aspect. So beyond that, the trip itself was great. The visits were fantastic. Like I said, I got to see my nieces, I got to see my sister, I got to see my mom, my brother, my brother-in-law. I got to see pretty much everybody that I needed to out there, except my two nieces, which Faye and Abney, I love you too. I'm so freaking proud of the young women these two have come into. Oh my God, my first nieces. And they unfortunately weren't available, so I'm going to have to make some time with them next time I get out there. But other than that, I got to see the whole family. I got to see the whole gang. I got some visits in with some friends that I needed to see. One of my closest friends and brother, Justin, got to see him, got to meet his young son. And, he's got another one on the way. So congratulations to my brother, my boy there. And yeah, the trip was overall really, really good. It just that feeling, right? That feeling of dream state the whole time. Leading up to the Saturday that I'm getting ready to leave, and I'm doing my last visits in the morning with some people, and I got hit, like slugged with deja vu, like heavy to the point of where I literally grabbed my knees and knelt over, like, give it just 1 second. It was powerful deja vu, and I hadn't been hit by a wave like that in a really long time. And I thought that was where that disassociation, that kind of brain fog was coming from, where it was just the preemptive feeling before this massive wave came in and hit me. But it didn't quite clear up until I was driving back into BC and I got out of that environment. Once I got back into the Vernon area, like my thoughts started clearing back up. I noticed things that I missed because of that disassociative state that I was in. And I quickly reined it all back in as soon as I got into my environment again. It was a whole different change. And that night, I ended up, got some food. I had a nap because it was a long drive. And then when I woke up from the nap, my throat and my chest were just on fire. And I thought, oh crap, I may have smoked too much weed when I got back, basically, and relaxed too much when I got home. But that wasn't the case. I got a big, nasty flu the night that I came back last Saturday. And correlatively to me, that meant, there's a big upgrade, purging stuff out, reprocessing, reinstituting a new physical state for all the downloads that just took place. And that kind of made sense with how heavy that deja vu hit me too. That awareness doesn't remove the physical discomfort of the flu. Regardless, I've been couch ridden almost all week. Between Sunday wasn't that bad. It was decent, but Monday was the absolute worst day. Oh, I was literally getting cramps. I was trembling from the chills so hard. It was just, and then I'd get super hot and super cold again, and I couldn't move without a draft coming in and giving me those violent chills. So Monday was awful. Tuesday was similar, but a little bit better. Each day kind of started to clear up. Today was the first day that I didn't have that flu brain where I actually felt like I was back in my body again. So I said, cool, let's do it. Let's get all cleaned up. Let's get ready for the show. But even yesterday, in the midst of that flu state, I had another massive deja vu. I was just on a phone call. I had some work on the go, and just bam, another wave comes in and hit me. And I said, oh, the alignment of it is not lost on me, on the fact that so many people have been experiencing these massive timeline shifts in their world. And it's just a thing that's being talked about since the Black Sun event. The state of timelines, the prism of the multiverse has turned into a vortex. It's turned into a nexus, basically. And instead of just getting glances at certain peripheral sides of the multiverse, we're actually traveling through it. And this kind of goes back to, I'm sure I did a show on this after the Black Sun event, but it goes back to the quantum shift journey that I took during that event, where that tunnel, the multiverse tunnel that we're all traveling through in this energetic state right now, this isn't a separation. This tunnel isn't being presented to us as an external force or an external representation of anything that we're traveling through as a separate piece. What it's actually being shown, or what it's trying to show us, I should say, is this tunnel, this energy is us. It's not a separate thing. It's us. That is our purest quantum essence that is stretched and expanding and existing throughout the entire infinity all at once, simultaneously. And we're getting a full, I don't just want to say embodiment, but we're being introduced to that aspect of ourselves, is the best way to put it. There's not this, you need to master this external thing. It's understanding that the form we take is made from whatever we draw from in this tunnel, in this quantum essence that's being stretched across the infinity. So as we're going through these timeline shifts, as we're going through these different receivings of, deja vu, synchronicities, all of these big changes that are currently taking place, remember that we choose our form from that tunnel. It's not taking us on a ride. It's trying to present itself in a way so we understand that awareness that we aren't journeying through. We are in the eye of that storm. We can be still as that infinity exists all at once, but we get to piece ourselves, our entire physical outlay, simply by choosing which pieces of that entire infinity essence we wish to embody. And that's based off of our belief systems. So there was a lot of this stuff, just boom, 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 simply from that trip over the last 2 weeks. And it made sense why I needed to, go down for a week with the flu, just to process, reinstitute myself. And interestingly enough, there was a couple of scenarios over this last little bit that I just noticed I handled so differently than I would have used to have handled them. And it was such an interesting affirmation. Um, there was an experience when I was out in Calgary where I basically what ended up happening was I had an opportunity to calibrate my current state of masculinity, my current state of standard of presence of how I'm showing up in my own world and allowing the influences or not allowing them to dictate that state of self. Excuse me one second. It's coffee time. I got to check the temperature. If you know me, you know once we hit the perfect temperature, we don't miss coffee time. Oh, we're close. We're damn close. So, something showed up, an opportunity, an invitation, I guess, if you will. And this invitation has been a reoccurring, it's been my Achilles heel, is the best way to put it. In all of my different states of growth, this invitation has always been my Achilles heel. So it showed up again because I had reached a new plateau. That's been the pattern of this invitation. Oh, I love this metaphor. It's great. So this invitation kept showing up throughout all of these different plateaus I would hit over the years in these different states of growth. And when the invitation would show up, it was interesting because it was inviting itself without offering anything. It was just trying to get the invitation. I would get an invitation for this to be brought into my space without offering anything in reciprocation of being in my space or what I'm offering in that space. And in the past, I just let that slide constantly. I would actually justify it in my own way of, oh no, I'm receiving in this way and it's okay. I'm totally good for this. Total just enabling a lack of standard in my own presence. So this invitation shows back up again. And it hit me, of course, because this was the first time in this space that I'm in since these quantum shifts and all of this new formation of self and perspective of my reality. Since all of that new settlement in me, this is the first time I've had to RSVP to this invitation. So it set me into a state of, a little bit of overthinking. I pulled back. I didn't pull back in essence from the world. I pulled back inward to check my own awareness, because as soon as I got to that overthinking state, I understood I wasn't being present anymore. I was being influenced by this outside energy, and it was taking me out of my present state, my state of sovereign masculinity. So I pulled back, took that awareness, had a couple conversations. I released what was surfacing from the overthinking, because if I held on to that, it starts to find a way into the crevices and make its way as a part of the energetic state that I'm responding in. So I knew that I had to just release the overthinking. I didn't have to attach myself to it. I didn't have to identify with it. It was just releasing it. So it wasn't in me. It wasn't a part of me anymore. Had a couple conversations to do that. I articulated very clearly where it was coming from all the awareness that I could take from that current state. And then I was very accountable for the things that were brought up in the conversation that I either may not have thought about or taken awareness to, or that I needed an elaboration on, is maybe a good way to put it. So I did that, cleared up, and I brought myself back into the state of, okay, so every time in the past this invitation would show up, I would drop everything in my world and say, yes, let me clear space and let me offer that space and what I can in that space to accept this invitation. And there's been a pattern of not only when I would hit new plateaus, the invitation would show up at my door. I shouldn't even say at my door. The invitation would be sent out, but it would never show up at my door. That's what I meant to say. It's been a very interesting pattern of that. I would get the invitation sent to me, and at the same time, it would never show up at my door. Not never. It used to stopped. And it hit this reoccurring thing of opening myself up, setting up the vulnerability, being willing to offer it in that space, and then having it rejected, thrown back, denied, all of these different things in a lack of coherent presence, right? So taking all this awareness, I said, I'm not doing that again. So I'm not in a place of, oh, let me drop everything in my world to cater and accommodate to this invitation, even though I have next to no pattern recognition of this invitation following through and showing up at my door. So I said, I'm not doing that again. First off, I'm not doing that again. Second of all, I just I didn't have the space to maneuver, even to offer the comfort, the distinguished comfort that I would have offered as a man in my world to receive the invitation. And then even if I did, there was the questions of what was the intention behind sending the invitation in the first place? Because of the state that I'm in, that has to be made clear now. I don't just play the random chitter chatter crap games anymore. So all of these things came into my place, sunk it into my state. I said, cool, I've got other things I need to do. And when I hit that point, before I could even RSVP to the invitation, 2 or 3 different synchronistic opportunities showed up in my world, which again, I would not have had space for had I dropped everything to just clear the space and hold that space for that invitation. Go about the events. Next thing I know, the response from the invitation says, oh, by the way, I won't be showing up. So even if I had followed through and opened up the space, again, it would have been that same pattern of not showing up at the door. So then it's sedimented in, and all of this, I don't know, new response, I guess, is a great way to put it. New perspective, new acknowledgement of my value that I offer in the space, because I've built it so much in my own personal awareness that when I open and I offer all that I am when I'm in that space, this is why I keep my circles tight, because I offer everything that I can when that connection is opened up. So I keep it very close. I don't have a widespread network that I just let that energy and that value and that presence be drained, because I understand the level of that value. So I got to reinforce that, and I got to put that into action and awareness. And again, synchronistic events came up. I come back, get the flu, go through all the downloads. I went into town just the other day to get some stuff and get down the mountain, do shopping, whatever. I'm on my way back up. And right at the bottom of the mountain, my car starts popping on dash lights, and the engine starts going, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I see the red lightning bolt come on, and for some reason the anti-theft system kicked in. Now I got a new key fob before I left for Calgary, like, I don't know, a week or 2 before I left from Calgary. It's been almost all month that I've had this new key fob. So it's very odd that all of a sudden it would be affecting the anti-theft system. And I mean, like, I can't get, I'm trying to slow it down. I can't get the thing to gear down. I go to try to put it in park. It just crunches the transmission. And I go, oh my God, I'm breaking my car. So I sit there, I let it relax. I let it kind of reset, do its thing. And instead of getting all worked up, I had all my groceries sitting in the back. I picked up some hot food because I hadn't eaten for, I don't know, 3 days at least, because my body just doesn't let me eat when I'm sick. I don't know what to say. I could try to force it. It won't happen. My body doesn't like to eat when I'm sick. So I didn't eat. So I went and I got some food, and I got hot food. And I was, excited to bring up to the mountain and eat. I hadn't eaten in 3 days. And it's all sitting there. And then my car's pulled off on the side of the road at the bottom of the mountain in front of a mailbox and some random dude's property. And instead of getting all worked up, I just stood outside and I go, you know what? I haven't gotten some good fresh air in a few days. Maybe it's good to just take this in for a minute. So I just threw outside and I just took in the weather, listened to birds, got some fresh air, let the car relax. I looked up some videos. The whole response was just I don't even just want to say acceptance. It was transmutation, basically, where I took all of the energy that was there that got put into the scenario and I just worked it into a preferred state of experience. I could have taken the energy as it was presented, the chaotic energy as it was presented, and I could have just reflected back the chaos. But instead I transmuted it, and understanding the duality of the third dimension, if there's chaos, there is inevitable order somewhere. As alchemists, as these quantum beings that we are, we have the capacity to choose our frequency when presented with these energies. When we're presented with chaos, we can reflect back that chaos, or we can transmute it and become the inevitable state of order that comes along with the chaos. So I did that, and I found the order within myself, and it allowed me to just take in the experience. Now I'm sitting there thinking I gotta get a tow truck. I start watching some videos, trying to look up, seeing what's going on with the car. It turns out, well, I mean, I still gotta figure out reprogramming the key or something along that line, but I just let it sit, getting into that state, relaxing. I put the key back in, started right up, got back up the mountain. Didn't need a tow truck, didn't need, to get I thought I was going to need a new transmission. I thought I was going to need roadside mechanic. Like, I thought I was going to be looking at spending at least over $1,000 just right then and there. I got back up there without having to spend a penny or falling into this horrible negative space. The only thing I was slightly disappointed about was my food was going to be cold by the time I got up the mountain, because it took me an extra hour. But that being said, meal wasn't ruined. Still good food. So I don't know. Finding these spaces of transmutation, finding these abilities within ourselves to quite literally be the balance that we're looking for in the world. I've been having these opportunities presented, and the autonomy has just been flowing through, which also tells me that because so much of that is in an autonomous state, I'm getting a lot more capacity to put into higher development, quantum awareness. It's like I've talked about in past shows, when we're not using all of that energy in an extension of ourselves to make sure we're doing this action or this action or this action. And when that just becomes autonomous autopilot response, all of that energy we were putting into those actions gets to be diverted somewhere else. I'm in that state, diverting the energy, finding new circuits, new conduits to put it towards. So that's been my catch up. I think it's coffee chugging time. Hold on. Oh yeah. That was almost a full cup, though. I'm not chugging a whole damn cup of coffee. Oh my God. That would just be nasty. So, some of the other awareness and development that I've got to really reinforce, I guess, since the last show, the masculine, feminine, I don't just want to say compatibility, but the dynamic, right? So I want to elaborate a little bit on what we had talked about last show, some of the things that I had experienced in my state over the last couple of weeks. I know that I had gone over certain descriptions of wounded feminine response, healthy feminine, how to address it with healed divine feminine energy. Same thing with masculine, wounded masculine response, how to address it with divine healed masculine energy. There was a couple points that I didn't go over that I would love to elaborate on today. And some of that has to do with the sacral activation, because when we talk about sacral activation, and I believe I've talked about this in other shows in the past as well, sexual and sacral activation is the creative force of the universe. This is something that has been bioengineered into us as physical beings, that sacral and sexual activation is the gateway to procreation. It's just the way that we create. It's the way that life force drives. And this goes so far beyond just the physical act of sex, which is why I say it's a sacral activation. Going into the dynamic of masculine, feminine, in this wounded essence on either side, there is a very misunderstood and mistreated, application of sex. And it comes in casual sex. It comes in, it comes in a lack of understanding of one's sexual identity, sexual preferences. It varies. The response mainly turns into selfish sexual practice, very casual and fleeting sexual activity, and a big mistreatment. I just want to say big mistreatment of the dynamic of a relationship. Because if we just look at it as mistreating their partner, we're actually looking out on the fact of when someone is mistreating their partner, that's a reflection of how they're treating themselves inside in that moment. So it's not just about the dynamic between the two of them. There's something going on within them that is causing them to project that out to the partner. So they're both being mistreated in that act. This casual sex culture is really, really dangerous. And in the feminine concept of it, there is an early developmental activation, right? When we talk about puberty, we talk about these adolescent jumps into adulthood and mature frequency of self and physical body. For guys, it becomes that super disassociated flipper flapping in the wind, because the sound of leaves rustling got you going when you're 12 years old. There is this hyper stimulus that takes place, and that's that force of creation, where it's looking to release, it's looking to express itself, it's looking for a way to build in the universe. And this is where we can look at how the body count aspect of things, especially in the male side of it, was looked at favorably, I guess, for so it was looked at as like a moniker of achievement. The more sexual activity you took part in throughout your life. Now we're looking at body counts going, it's disgusting the higher that it is. It's really, really nasty when we think about it from a logical perspective, to sleep with just all of these random people, one after another, after another, after another. That aspect comes from that base sentimentality of the force of creation trying to find a way of expressing itself in the world, building something in the world, creating something by conquering these different areas biologically programmed into us to say, you can create in this space, you can create in this space. There's just no refinement, there's no knowledge, there's no actual direction for these young men when they're going through this energetic surge. On the feminine scale of this is where we find the young seductresses, is a great way to put it, playing off of this little boy adolescent energy and basically learning the tools of seduction and, in essence, manipulation as well, because they're finding out which of these young men are weak and which of them have a different caliber about them that can't be so malleable to adolescent bullshit. Because the seduction games at that level is all that it is. It's games. It is very much so testing boundaries and finding the ways to coax things in certain directions. There's no true divine value that comes from it. It's experiential, right? Which I'm not saying it's invaluable. Experiential is valuable. It doesn't have a divine component to it yet. When that is harnessed, when we're talking about this seduction aspect and this hyperstimuli aspect, because looking again at that hyperstimuli in the man, look the lengths that young men go to express that energy, to conquer, to find that way, to conquer that sense of energy in themselves and say, yes, I did this, I expressed this, I did something in my world. They go to the farthest lengths to get that out, right? To express that energy. When we're talking about both of these dynamics healed in harmony and we bring the divine components in, oh my goodness, what we're giving birth to is a completely unstoppable force of creation that meets a cradle of life. We have in this divine feminine presence now the power to invigorate a masculine energy to become a juggernaut in his world. When that seduction energy is directed and focused in that divine manner for that masculine that is providing back for her, and she knows the masculine so well in the way that will invigorate his loins, get that sacral activation in a way that explodes from the balls up and out every region of his body. He will stop at nothing to express that energy. What the masculine then needs is a refinement of understanding that on average, the way we've been conditioned to express that energy is through orgasm, through sexual act, through masturbation. It's usually just through orgasm. But if we could find a way to channel that sacral activation, that incredible stimuli through us, that unstoppable need to express that energy, channel it from the loins into the actions that we're taking in our world, we become unstoppable. We become the kings of our environment. Because instead of just going blah, and wasting the energy, we're building something. We're going out in the world, we're utilizing all of that force of creation that was just nurtured in the cradle of life and amplified, multiplied upon. And we're channeling it outward to be of service. It's a whole different presence that we get to offer as men. And we only reach that point, this highest point. It's not to say we aren't of service without this, but we reach this highest unstoppable juggernaut force with that sacral activation from the true seduction of our divine counterpart, not just any random person. It's a divine symbiosis, the true yin yang essence. So it's an incredible awareness to take in upon ourselves, to know that these things that we can even look at or have been looking at as almost, I don't want to maybe say negative components, but things that we have not underappreciated. We've underappreciated these aspects of ourselves, the power of seduction, this power of conquering and expression once the masculine is invigorated on that level. And in essence, it's not just underappreciated, it's been misinterpreted, it's also been misused. So to be able to clarify this process within ourselves as we get to these states, it's a game changer. It's just an absolute game changer. So we're going to quickly check the comments here. I'm going to see if anybody's asked any questions. Nope, we're good. No comments just yet. So that being said, here's my website, y'all. Come check me out. Come check me out at some point. I've got lots to talk about, and we'll set up private sessions. We can do one-on-ones. I have a few different programs that I offer, everything from one-on-one mentorship to readings to cognitive memory reprogramming. That one is a deep program that people have to be willing to accept the malleability of their own structures of belief and be willing to rework them. It's definitely a DIY project with guidance, of course, but that one's a big one. I've got some ninjutsu techniques. Actually, at some point, we're going to start going over something in the Bujinkan ninjutsu practices. It's called the Kuji Kiri, and it's the 9 symbolic hand cuts or symbols that they call them. And I've studied them over the years. I've learned a little bit more, I guess, application and definition as I've practiced them and gone through actually using them in my life. And they have correlations to the chakra points in our body. They have meditation practices that go along with them. So at some point or another, we will probably start going through them within the shows and sharing this information with people, because it's part of my spiritual warrior course, my Seirei Sensei no Jutsu, the art of the spiritual warrior course that I offer. So we'll start sharing little bits and pieces of this. I'm not going to give you guys the whole subject, because you got to come book some time with me if you want the whole subject, but we'll give you little bits and pieces. Yeah, beyond that, what else happened so beyond the deja vu stuff, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about. Wednesday night. Yeah, it was Wednesday night. Solstice time, right? I think that was solstice. It was right around the solstice anyways. We had solstice, we had full moon. I mean, solar flare activity. There's been tons and tons of stuff happening cosmically and even inner earth-wise, to be completely honest with you. The Wednesday night, I went to bed. I feel like I watched. I did. Okay, so every night that these types of things happen beforehand, there's some media. There's either a Facebook video or something on Netflix or Tubi or something like that I'm drawn to watch, because there's a message in it, or there's something that correlates to a seed that's in my garden, and it just pulls it right up. So that night I had watched a movie on, and I wish I could, it was called Alpha Code, I believe, maybe Alpha Code on Tubi. And it was about alien hybridization with, was it just the Greys? I think it was the Greys. It was based off of a true story, is what it was. So there was a guy who came back from, was he Russian? Oh, geez. I wish I could remember the synopsis more. I'm so sorry. He had an experience, and he comes back from the experience, and he's removed. His wife goes missing, this and that. His daughter ends up going missing as well. And he keeps seeing these signs all over, these little symbols that are drawn all over the place. And he's trying to link it together to figure out why, like what's happening. Why are these things all connected? As the journey continues, he, runs into a few other people, kind of find out they're on the same synchronistic journey, yada, yada, yada. He's being chased down by the local police and the governments, and they think that he killed his daughter and his wife and all this jazz. Closer to the end of the flick, they find this underground compound, and he goes down into he knows his way. It's starting to come back to him, right? He knows his way. And he gets to a Stargate. When he hits the floor at the bottom of the staircase, the whole solid floor is rippling like it's water. And he walks up to a Stargate that, again, looks like water. And just for reference, with my knowledge that I have on ET technology, the water that's referred to in these types of imagery is a legitimate element or component to ET technology, but it's not the same kind of water that we would think. It's not the water that comes out of our tap. It's much more gelatin-like substance kind of water. It has a lot more tangibility to it. So that, just for reference, when you see that stuff, it is an actual representation of the way the technology has component operation to it. So anyways, walks through this dude in big tall guy in this robe, and he's got a celestial face. And what I mean by that is it looks like the blackness of space with all the stars and the different constellations. And then when you move it, it looks like you're just looking at different angles of space. And apparently this was the movie's representation, or the guy who experienced this. I'm not actually 100% sure, but it was that representation of a gray. So it was either the representation of a gray or an ambassador to the grays. But the grays were the storyline showrunners of the encountered beings in the movie. Starts the discussion with the guy, and the robed gray goes, "You don't remember your last interactions with me, do you?" And he says, "No, please help me remember." So he starts running him through the story. And again, this is based off of true events. So I'm paying close attention. I even did a rewind on it. The expression from the gray to the man said, "We've been coming here for very, very, very long time. One of the instances of, unplanned visitation, I guess, or unplanned encounter." He referred to the Roswell incident where he said, "We crash landed. This was an unplanned encounter. We crash landed in Roswell, and a deal was brokered with the government there." And a lot of people know that this is a story that has been going around in the theory rooms for a long time. So this was just kind of an affirmation on that. And basically, again, the explanation was technology for humanity. And right there, the tone switched, because the stories that we hear about in the theory rooms are fear-inducing stories. Oh, they've been shopping out humans for technology, and basically it's a bargain sale for humans to be picked up and experimented on and all this other stuff. And in the movie, again, the true story events of this guy's encounter with them changed that whole tonality, where he said the gray representative didn't express that it was based off of experimentation. It was actually based off of a hybridization program with humanity. And again, this links to other stories that we know about of the grays having lost the ability to genetically reproduce based off bioengineering and the way that timeline evolved. They lost that ability to genetically reproduce themselves, physically genetically reproduce. So coming back here, there was a hybridization program for that, but there was also meant to save humanity, the way that the gray had expressed it to this man, saying we were saving the civilization from itself by giving the genetics, or giving the capacity to evolve beyond where we were devolving, because we were hitting points in our society where we were absolutely on the decline, 100, like without question. So listening to this, the guy starts getting flashes, starts getting images, and he starts realizing that his daughter was one of these hybrids. And he goes, "So why don't we know more about why aren't the hybrid children more active in the world?" And the gray alien said, "We go to great lengths to keep them secret," I guess. I can't remember the exact sentence verbatim, but it was, "We go to great lengths to keep them secret while refining their evolution. And we do that so those in power who would use the hybrid's power to any means and to any ends that they could, don't gain access to the hybrids. They're protecting them through the secrecy, through allowing them to develop in a way that wouldn't have them be controlled. Because with the hybridization, humanity is offering certain conscious components that the gray presence does not have access to. Things like empathy, things like a conscious guilt mechanism, and that ability to discern between right and wrong, and that is so much less refined because of their evolutionary state. Things just come out as logical or illogical. There's not that sentimentality or that emotion, the energy in motion that comes along with the human component. That being said, with the hybridization, these genetics being introduced to each other, the hybrids in the early stages do not have that empathy refined yet. They don't have that dynamic refined. So again, this is all in the explanation of the movie. Because of that state, they would have been much more easy to control, to manipulate, and to condition to become tools, basically. So all of this explanation comes out. He starts having these flashes, things start coming back to him, and he goes, oh, this is what happened. And he goes, me and my wife, we chose to take part in the hybridization, or they were a part of the hybridization program, and their baby, their genetics were combined, offered, and used to create a hybrid child. And they chose to forget the physical experience and have their memories wiped to protect the secrecy of the program, basically. That was the kind of explanation towards the end of the movie, and wraps up. I'm sitting there going, wow, not only was that just an incredible premise to a movie and a great explanation to elaborate on some of these theories that we've had circle around for so long, but I've actually had experiences just like this. I don't remember a physical thing taking place, but I absolutely have had experiences of this. And we're going to elaborate on it in just a little bit. I need to finish what happened on Wednesday before we lose that topic, and then I'm going to finish up the story. So I watched this movie. I go to bed Wednesday, getting all activated from, oh, this is really cool stuff. And then again, it clicks into some stuff in the past, which we're just about to get into. And at some point in the middle of the night, I literally felt physically like I ninja rolled off the front of my bed. And the next thing I know, I'm standing in the middle of the room, and I'm getting these flashes of images and stuff that's slowly fading away. And I'm forgetting everything in like just domino, boom, 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 losing it all. And I go, what the hell just happened? So I get myself together. I go back into bed. I lay down. And I go, I haven't had an encounter like that in a long time, which really let me know what I took from that movie hit deep, like deep. So what was brought up from me from the past, from this movie, the experience that I've had with this, I've had encounters in the past that were linked to my Achilles heel that were in this exact context. We're meeting this person, having the union of our energies was such a cosmic event that there was actually DNA taken from the two of us, up, combined, and used to create 4 hybrid children. And I've met these children in visions. I remember I will never forget the very first time I met these children in visions. The very first time I was dreaming, and I woke up, and I mean woke up, I was consciously aware I was in my room, but when I opened my eyes, I couldn't see the room. All I could see were these glowing cosmic eyes looking right back at me. And I just knew it was my daughter. I don't know how I knew. There wasn't a facial feature. There wasn't a body. There wasn't anything. I just knew it was my daughter. And I've never seen eyes look like that. It was indescribable. The next time that they showed up. I was outside. I was living in Calgary at the time. I can't remember the year. It was after 2016. So I want to say between 2017 and 2018. Yes, between 2017 and 2018. More than likely 2017, late 2017. Anyways, I'm outside at the house that I'm living in, and I'm having a smoke on the back deck. I'm having a cigar, and I'm looking up. And again, everything kind of just fades out, and I see the full face and body image of that daughter. And she looks at me and smiles and just held her hand out toward me. And when I say I dropped to my knees sobbing, I dropped to my knees sobbing. It was one of the most powerfully, instantly impacting events that I've ever experienced. Slowly from there, I was introduced to 3 other children. And I knew. So, holy crap, this came from that union. That came from simply the power of our combined presence. And unfortunately, it did, because I didn't have, I don't even want to use unfortunately, at the time and the mental state that I was in, it had me pursue it on a physical level really, really hard, to the point of where I was trying to force this to become a reality, which is just never a healthy or valuable way of going about anything in context like that. But it didn't take away from the fact that I met the kids. They already existed. They're already on that higher frequency. So that journey helped refine me through these different plateaus, these different states of growth that I needed to go through, which is again why I didn't want to use unfortunately. It worked out the way it needed to work out. But watching that movie and having this, I don't know, this whole affirmation of that's a real thing. Like, that's an actual program. This wasn't something that I just made up in my head. This is an experience that many others, I'm sure, have had glimpses of and bits and pieces of. And it's not on us to have to convince anybody else of it. That belief system in myself triggered a response in my body where it's real. It's absolutely real. So just getting an affirmation like that from a true story movie, it was really, really powerful. And I have a feeling that part of the disclosure movement that's going to be taking place isn't just ships arriving or outer extension beings coming here. It's going to be the realization of what's already here, what's already been in front of us that we're engaging in, that is a part of this shared plane of existence in this dimension, just realizing itself, embodying who we truly are, and rising in that state of evolution. I think that that's going to be a big component to the next few ways of disclosure. We're going to see the hybrid kids. We're going to see all of the evolution of this rise in humanity as we get ready for our next stages of evolution. So that being said, exciting times. Woo-wee! We got some stuff coming down the way. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me again today. I hope you enjoyed the catch-ups, the chit-chats. It's always so wonderful getting on here. Please join me on my website and book some time with me if you'd like to. Find me on Facebook, Alexander Willems. And I hope you guys enjoy the weekend you've got ahead of you. I know I will. See you next week.